the legend that is in our arena today, Mr. Dodds Hayden. Dodds is a truly unique man. I've been lucky enough to drink with you, hang out with you, go to dinner with you, watch you order wine like I've never seen anybody order wine before, and experience and realize how fascinating this is. But Dodds has got an incredible story. He's a former Special Forces Force Recon guy, which we're going to get into that. Dodds has an incredible story of how he is built up the largest beverage distribution company in Idaho, Hayden Beverages. And the story of how he did it, it was a business his dad started, and he had to actually fight to run it in all his, from a loving place, great relationship with his dad, but an incredible father-son story of how this unfolded. Dodds is also a sommelier. Dodds, were you level 2? Are you level 2 now? Is that?
I think I'm a level 2 WSET. I'm a level 1 sommelier. So I don't have a lot of the certifications, but
You're legit.
But yeah, I'm legit after 30 years. Yeah.
Especially the warehouse of wine sitting behind you. Clearly,
yes, indeed.
We'll say that.
I just had one the other day. So you could edit this in. But one of the fun things about being in the wine business, and Allie loves this. So I don't know, I don't know how many things I do that turn my wife on anymore. But we're at dinner the other day, and we're in Paris, and she had just done this French school for 6 weeks. It was incredible, and she's in there just jabbering in French. It's awesome. It's turning me on. And then so the wine comes, and a bottle of wine. The wine comes, and he pours the wine, and I take the on him. I said, I'm not sure. You want smell it. And I give it to the sommelier to smell, and he smells it, and he says, "Oh, that's good." And then I take it and said, "Oh, that's good. That's corked." And so he takes the bottle away, and he goes, and he comes back and he said, "I'm sorry, sir, that is corked," and he gives me a new bottle. But it's this really interesting thing, right? So sometimes wine is corked. It's obvious, right? It just smells like a wet dog or wet newspaper. But most of the time, it's subtle, and you can barely tell. And there is this battle of confidence that happens when you say to a sommelier, I think this wine's corked, and they say back to you, "No, sir, I don't think it is," or "No, sir, it's not." And then it's like, yeah, it is.
That's how you know you've arrived.
And anyway, it certainly happened to me a few times, and it happened last week, and and Allie was like, "Oh, that's awesome."
but Dodds is he's a true family man, a Renaissance man if there ever was, athlete. I mean, just all around guy. We're a great guy who we're excited to talk to today. And having Justin, did I leave anything out? I mean, his resumes of interesting facts is quite long. Let me know if I dropped anything off.
Yeah, I think Dodds is constantly pushing the envelope, which is I think it creates a lot of admiration from a lot of people. Roby Creek is known as one of the most challenging half marathons straight up a hill. And Dodds, he doesn't run it once; he does it double. That's what he does. So he would go run it.
He used to,
and then run it again. It's like who the hell in their right mind would do? One, who would do it when you're built like a Clydesdale, which we all are, and who would run it twice? So, I think with that and just his natural curiosity about life and things, and he probably consumes, I don't know, 50 books a year, probably something like that, and is always giving me good ideas of things to read, which we both love to do, and you do too. So,
well, we're excited to have you, Dodds.
Outstanding family man and great role model for his kids and our kids and people in the communities that they're lucky enough to work with him. So,
yeah, absolutely. We're glad you're here, my
thanks,
man.
Pal.
So I'd love to kick it off real quick, Dodds. I know we got into it already a little bit, but I want to set the stage and first start with the Hayden Beverage, your story around this company, because it is incredible. I come from the TV documentary world, and when I first heard your story, I'm like, this is a doc film. Like it is phenomenal what you did, and not only did you do it, but also I got to see some of the videos and some things from your employees, the culture that you've built there. I mean, like, I love the way not only have you built the largest and most successful, but in the way you've done it and the culture you've done it at that company is really phenomenal. It says a lot. So let's set the stage, because this is a great story. Okay. And then we got a couple big questions to kick this off with you. So your dad started this company in the 70s, which is a phenomenal backstory we'll get to in a second. You have a sister, right? And the old man is ready to pass down the torch of the business. That's right. What year was this? Let's put
so I'm not sure the old man was ever ready to pass down the torch,
Okay,
but in 2006, so I came to work with a company in 1996, I think, and 1995, and right after Marine Corps. And so I came to work and was working there, for several years, running our Sun Valley operation. Then I forced my way down to Boise because I know that's where I need to be if I'm going to run the company. And my dad is going to leave me up in Sun Valley forever, because Sun Valley is just a utter pain in the ass to run. And so finally I forced my way down there, and then we end up sharing an office together for 2 years, which was so for my kind of 30-year anniversary, I just was, they did a little interview of me yesterday, and they asked what was a memory, your favorite memories of your career. And I said, really, it was sharing an office with my dad for 2 years. It was so cool. And it was so cool for me, and it was so cool for him. And I hope that I had that opportunity for my boys, and they had that opportunity with me. But I'm not going to push. I was going to hope. And so we had this a really good thing going on. And it was obvious that I was going to come up and run the company. Mind you, back in 1986, after I'd graduated high school, and I was getting ready to go to Bowdoin College, and all proud of myself. We just won a state championship in basketball, and I had the world on the string, right? And I'm working at Hayden Beverage that summer, and my dad calls me in the office and sits me down and says, "You've been late 3 times this week." I was like, "Oh, and he says, "I don't let any of my employees be late. Look, I'm sure I'm not going to let you be late. If you're late again, you're fired." And so, sure. And then I took it seriously, but sure enough, like 4 or 5 days later, it was AM, PM on the alarm. I screwed up. Anyway, the next thing I wake up, my stepmom wakes me up half hour after I'm supposed to be at work. And I was like, oh my God. So my dad fired me, which is really interesting because he was so proud of me at that time, right? He had just seen me do this senior year of high school, victory lap. And Boise is a small town. Everybody knows everybody. And, I'm in the paper and all that stuff. And then he fires me, right? So he knows how hard that's going to be on me and my reputation. It's also, it's his reputation, right?
Yep.
He fired his own kid. And, but he knew that was the right thing. It was the right thing to do for his company, because his employees would expect that.
Yep.
And it was certainly the right thing to do for me, because it gave me a dose of mortality and humility. So it was just a great thing. And the good thing that came from it was for the next 5 years after that, I had to get all my own jobs. Before that, I had either worked for him or I worked at Albertsons because, and he got me the job because I was too young to legally work there, whatever the case. And so it kind of helped put me on my own. So
for the next 5 years, you didn't work for Hayden Beverage. You were off doing other jobs,
right,
on your own.
Road construction, worked for Boise Cascade in an internship. Went to the Marine Corps Officer Candidate School.
Yep.
Yeah. And then 5 years later, he asked me if I'd come back and help him out on a delivery route, which I did. But then, and there's fast forward. It's so 20, what that was 19. So 15 years later, We're working together. I'm, the number 2 in the company, and then he gets diagnosed with cancer.
Mm.
And he so he's diagnosed with cancer, goes, sees a specialist in Seattle, they're gonna take the tumor out before he goes, right? And he had a will and stuff before that, but before he went and had everything updated, and he called me in to the attorney's office, and we reviewed the will. And I just cared about one thing: that if something happened to him, that I was in control, that I wasn't having to take orders from my stepmother or my sister, or having to clear things through them. And so once I saw that was the case, then everything else was good. And we didn't think he was going to die anyway. It was just going to take out a tumor, right? So we go to Washington. They take the tumor out, and everything seems to be okay. And then a few days later, it wasn't. And I get called from my stepmom to actually come back go to the attorney's office, get the living will, and be back. This is what your dad's wishes. So I come back, and then I just have to fight to get his will to live back, and which we did. But then 3 or 4 days later, he's released about to be released from the hospital, and he's going home. Got the plane, got our got tickets to the plane, and the doc says, God, I'm not happy with these levels. I need you to keep you here. And he just went. It was it started going, and then he was given the choice, right? Do you want to fight it here? Do you want to fight it in Boise? Do you want to just be comfortable here and head out? Or do you want to do that in Boise? And he said, no, I'm good. It's been a great run. See ya. so we gave him some morphine, and off he went. And I have really mixed feelings about that, right? One is, he did not want to be an invalid. And he was a big, strong, tough guy, incredibly, self-sufficient, and he didn't want to be, dependent on people and have people have to, see to him. And he always wanted to be in control of when he went, and sure enough, he was. The other side of that is he didn't get to see his son get married, or he didn't get to see his grandkids. He didn't get to see so many things. And so I'm, in one sense, I was also kind of mad at him about that, but it was his life to do what he wanted. So he dies. And so I show up.
Did the cancer take it over? What exactly happened?
Yeah. So they took the tumor out, but it was maybe a little bigger than they thought. They had him open for a lot longer than they thought they were going to have him open.
Okay.
And he ended up getting a staph infection, and it was a staph infection that just racked his body. And he wasn't able to ever truly recover. So that's what ended up getting him.
So Dodds,
he died.
So we go back to, he requests you to go get the living will and bring it and to go meet him at the hospital. Do you get there before he succumbs? Or
I got that was the call I got at 3 a.m. on Tuesday, and so I had a flight Wednesday night, and so Wednesday evening we actually had a YPO forum meeting, and so I show up to my YPO forum, and the way a YPO forum meeting works is you kind of do an update on what's going on, and you say, does anybody have anything really big to talk about that we should address, and then usually have some presentations and some stuff. And so they say, they didn't got everything going on. And I said, yeah, this is what's going on. And they just like, screech, stop, let's go. Let's talk about that. So we talked about that, and then my forum helped me. We put together a business plan on how we were going to get him his will to live back. And it included goals, it included tracking, it included what are all the things I have to live for. It was awesome. We had people, good friends of him. I lined them up to their family members, and sure enough, we got it, and it worked. And he didn't, he had his living will, but he didn't say, I'm ready to check out. And he got better. And again, he was almost released from the hospital, and then everything crashed. So that's that. So I was there. We got him. I was there all the way to the end.
Got it. And
that's powerful. Yeah. And he
right?
Was he a military guy?
He was a Marine. He did did a little different than mine. He was a Marine. I think he went in when he was I think between his sophomore and junior year at Amherst, he went and did the Marine Reserves. And I don't know if that was to avoid being drafted,
Yeah.
because I think he got kicked out of Amherst for something,
Yeah.
probably grades, probably fighting. But, and so I think he may have done that to avoid a draft.
Yeah.
But he did it and he loved it. He said he loved the boot camp, loved the challenge, the fight. He hated the rest of it, of
Yeah.
doing this weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. Couldn't stand that, but loved the boot camp portion. And he
What
finished honor man, which was a top man in your platoon in boot camp.
what was the last moment that you had with him like? What would you remember what he said to you, what you guys exchanged?
Yep. Yeah, he the last thing the last thing he said to me was he was proud of me, and the last thing I said to him was I was proud of him. And then he died. Yep.
Oh
Amazing.
man.
Yeah,
So
which I tell everybody, and Juice, I can't remember if you were there when your dad died, but I tell everybody, if you have the opportunity to be there when your parent goes, the very moment,
Yeah.
do whatever you can to be there. It's just so special, and it's so different than, my mom died, and you're going to come down the next morning, and I missed it, and
Yep.
it's so different.
So you're in this extremely powerful moment with your hero, the guy who you aspired to be, and obviously tried to follow in his footsteps in many ways, just by clearly the things you had done in your life at that point. Are you aware of what the will says at this moment, or do you discover what the control of the company is after this moment?
Yeah, no, I think I knew that I had control. I knew that I would have to, buy the company. I think I understood that. I certainly understood it I don't know to what detail I knew it. Again, all I really knew is that I would have control. That whatever happened, I wouldn't happen to me. That I could, that I would be a part of it. And so went back. Obviously, dies. I go back to Boise. I show up to the office. We had this brand new office because we're in the middle of doing this remodel. We had just kind of finished. We were finishing a remodel, and I walk into that office and I see people, and I see there's a Denise Hibbert who'd been with us for a long time, just crying, right? And I can't tell if she's crying because my dad's gone or because now I'm running things. I can't tell which. But I sauntered down and I sit in my.
It's probably the second, would be my guess.
Dude, I asked her that the other day. She promised me it wasn't. But and so I get back to work, and we're doing all this stuff, and I think I know what I'm doing, and but I knew I didn't really know. I started wearing suits. No, nobody wears suits at Hayden Beverage, but I started wearing a suit as soon as I got back, right? Just to try to convince people, oh yeah, he looks very serious. And totally serious. And so did that, and we're going. And then I think within 10 days, we have a payroll, and my controller comes down, and like our payroll at the time for a 2-weekly payroll was like $120,000. And so it comes down, and he lays a sheet of paper on my desk and said, "That's our bank balance," and it was $9,000. So we had just covered payroll, we had $9,000 left, and we had no line of credit because my dad had plenty of money, so I didn't need to borrow money. So we had no line of credit. We were down $9,000, and we were in the middle of a $5 million warehouse addition remodel, of which we hadn't paid for yet. So that's where we were, and the way.
So your dad had taken the proceeds and the funds. They were in his personal account, and
Exactly.
he was
Well,
underwriting. He was
close.
underwriting all this personally. Yeah.
So he had taken that money and he had it in the LLC that owned the warehouse, and so that's what was doing the construction, right? So the LLC was doing the addition to the warehouse, and the company was just going to pay higher rent. So the money so now I'm left on the hook to do this project, and I don't have any money to do it. So the way he had set it up was he left that LLC to my sister. So he left the warehouses and the money that was going to take care of the remodel to my sister. Now the company was on the hook for the remodel somehow, but that's what he left to her. And then I had bought 51% of the company, and he carried the note for that. So he took the note that I owed him, several $1 million, and he left that also to my sister. And then you had his 49% of the company, and he left that to a trust. And I had the ability to buy that equity out of the trust. So I would essentially be able to have 100% of the company. But if I didn't buy it from the trust within 6 months, then it was left to my stepsisters. Which was really, so the trust would fund my stepmother's income. It was a Q-tip trust that would fund my stepmother's income. So basically that was his way of saying, buy it, put the money in there so it'll take care of my wife. And so that's what he did.
So you had six. So you get handed the keys to the company, to the family company, and you have a 6-month clock ticking to basically pull the trigger,
to buy the remaining 49%.
Yeah,
you're
to buy the remaining 49%. Yeah, mind you, I don't own a warehouse. That was left to my sister. I don't have the cash to pay for the remodel. That was left to my sister. And the note that I had, you would think that my dad would bequeath to me. No, that also went to my sister. So needless to say, later that week, I went to my sister and asked if I could borrow some money to finish the warehouse.
And how'd that conversation go?
I think she totally enjoyed that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the relationship with your sister at this point, give us a quick understanding of this before we go into the dialogue.
Yeah. So my sister is she's my younger sister, and thank God, because she never got a B in high school or college. I think she was magna cum laude or summa cum laude from Wellesley. Then was a doctor. I'm just smarter than hell, and intense. And so thank God, from that time she was a little kid, she knew she wanted to be a doctor. Because if I had to compete with her for the business, it may not have gone well for me. So she was outside the business, and we've always had a very good relationship. And so certainly when this came along and I asked her I need to borrow a couple $1 million to finish this warehouse,
so play that conversation out. So how'd that go?
Say, yeah, we're doing this warehouse edition, and Pop left you everything, and I have nothing. I need to borrow some money, and she was like, all right, and we'll figure out a appropriate interest rate, but yeah, well, I can do that for you. No, she was good about it, and so she did that. Lent me the money. I did that, and literally, I think with that week, I also went down to Washington Trust Bank and got a line of credit set up.
Yep.
But another interesting thing, and a lesson for your viewers, make sure you have a relationship with your banker. So we were with Wells Fargo, and we'd been with them forever. But because we didn't borrow money from them, I didn't really have a relationship with anybody at Wells Fargo. And it's funny, this happened to a buddy of mine with the same thing. His dad died, and he went to get a line of credit, and Wells Fargo was like, we don't know who you are. And we don't know if you're going to be able to keep the money afloat. So they didn't give him a line of credit. And so anyway, a great lesson is know your banker on a personal level.
100%.
So anyway, I went to a YPO buddy, Jack Heath at Washington Trust Bank, and he got us set up and got us a line of credit. I was able to keep the company alive, going, and eventually I was able to sell. Anyway, and then later on, we want to talk about that. But I ended up doing a deal with a kind of a national or a regional player, big regional player, who was both my largest threat and apparently also my largest potential ally. And I was really under some stress on all the stuff was going on, and they were kind of encroaching. They had just taken over Oregon and Washington, and so obviously Idaho was kind of next to their scope, but they'd been calling saying, hey, we'd like to buy you. And my dad was like, yeah, screw you. And they kept going. And my wife and I were having drinks one night and out in town, and I was all stressed out about it. And she said, well, why don't you partner with them? I was like, well, I don't, all right.
Well, maybe I should think about that. That's a pretty good idea.
So literally, that's what it was. And we went home and we did the plus and minus columns that night, and the pluses were that long and the minuses were like that. And because my wife Allie pushed me, we ended up doing the deal, and it allowed me I sold a third of the company for twice or three times what I had paid to buy the company. Right. So it provided all the cash I needed. I paid off my sister. I paid off the trust. I was able to pay off everything. And it was a strategic deal because it put me with a guy who could help me grow my business. And so that was the very beginning of what was able to start the growth trajectory that we had.
And you pulled that off in the first 6 months from taking it over and met that deadline, or did it take place after?
No, so we did, let's see. So my dad died in March of 05. I did the Young's deal on Halloween of 06. So it was about a year and a half later that I did the deal. So I lived by, with the help of Washington Trust and my sister for the next year and a half. And we got the building, done and paid for.
Amazing.
Wow.
What was the size of the company when you took it over then to what it is now?
I think it was 35 million in revenue the year before my dad died, and today it's 350 million.
Amazing.
Yeah, get that. Those are 10x.
10x.
Unreal.
Yeah.
10x.
And
you've done it organically. You picked up other lines and took on more geography, as well as you bought some other businesses too, right?
We eventually bought some other businesses, but what we did was, again, because we weren't, consolidation, right? I think consolidation is a Darwinian principle in business, I believe, right? It's just, it's happening, right? And it's always happening. And it had already happened in the wine business a lot, but it hadn't happened in the beer business at all. And I realized that it's coming, and either we need to get big or we're going to go away. So my deal with Young's was one of the things I thought would help with growth. And it was because, these much stronger relationships with these big wine suppliers. And the thing that happened with bud distributors, they didn't go into the next market because there was another bud distributor in the next market. So they just kind of stayed in their markets. And I didn't have that, Bud or Coors wasn't my main, supplier. So I wasn't held back by that. So I ended up spreading into Eastern Idaho. And then I went up to North Idaho, and I just planted a flag and started stealing brands and convincing brands to leave their company and come to me, and they say it's illegal, I'll indemnify you. And it got really aggressive. And it would allowed us to become the first statewide distributor. And we used it, through what we perceived as a weak franchise law. For your listeners, franchise law is when your brand, it happens in car dealers, it happens in beer and wine distributors, that your rights to sell that brand, be it a Chevy or a Pabst or Heineken, is protected by law, and the manufacturer can't just pull it from you. So, all those laws, they kept a lot of the consolidation from happening, but we just got aggressive and, said, let's go break some windows. And we did, and it worked out great. And then we were able to, with things like Red Bull and, Mike's Hard Lemonade and some other, great brands that came along later, we're able to, build up where everything in the state was profitable.
What was the dynamic when you were number two, when your dad was still there? Did you have a vision for some of the stuff that you were trying to do with the old man, and he was a little more old school, or were you thinking differently? And then when you had the keys, all of a sudden you're like, I'm about to lose this in 6 months. And then all of a sudden this gear kicked in. Like, what was that dynamic then? And what was the shift that took place?
Yeah, no, I had been pushing to grow. We had the opportunity to go buy a large distributor in Eastern Idaho. And it was there for us to get. They didn't have Bud, they didn't have Miller, but they had a ton of wine and a bunch of the beers that we had, and we could have bought it. And we had a good relationship with him, and my dad wouldn't do it. And I think really the dynamic was, my dad was 63, and he was looking at, okay, how much do I have? How much is it going to get me through to the day I die? So, and he was a founder. And I think that often founders, especially because he almost lost it when and my mom divorced. I think there's just such fear of losing everything that you built that, especially that late in life, that he wasn't going to risk that. And so so we didn't pull triggers when he was there. And for me, I guess I saw the need to do it to survive, but I also saw the need that if I didn't take one and make three, then I wasn't worthy to run the company, right? My dad had given me this opportunity. It was my job to build on what he had built.
Yeah. What was the biggest, we talk about this in the from the arena perspective, what was the biggest weakness you had that you didn't really discover till the spotlight was on, that you had to overcome and work past, right? What was the thing that all of a sudden you got the keys, spotlight's on, I got payroll coming here, I got, throughout that whole journey, what was your biggest growth moment? Like, wow, this is my Achilles heel here. I got to solve this. And what wasn't, how'd you overcome that?
I think it was finance and accounting. I think I didn't, I was an English major in college. I went to the Marine Corps after college. Went to business school, but I didn't do accounting in business school. So, I think it was finance. It was understanding cash flow, understanding capital, all those things. That was my weakness. And luckily we had a good controller who in truly a controller in a control sense, that he was really good at financial controls. He wasn't a big finance guy, but he could make sure that there wasn't money leaking out of the system, which is how I define a good controller. Yeah. So I think that was where I was weak, and I leaned on him to make sure that we were there. Had I had a better financial understanding and a financial mind, I probably could have been a lot more aggressive. We never borrowed. We didn't use debt, so we probably could have moved a lot faster and a lot bigger had I had a better understanding of finance.
Interesting. So when you're sitting, there with your dad and you're getting ready to go through the transition, did he confide in you? Hey, here are the things that keep me up at night, or hey, I'm fearful of losing the business. I mean, would he show vulnerability and tell you that, or was he sort of a man without any chinks in the armor, so to speak?
No, he was good about that. He would talk about, and he'd lay out, say, if everything ended tomorrow, we could sell off the inventory, we could sell off the trucks, we'd have this much left, right? So that was part of his thought process is, what happens if everything falls apart, which is I think is a great exercise,
right,
that for us to do, and he told me why he didn't want to take some of those risks, because of his concern with putting the enterprise at risk.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. So basically you had to buy the business that you were running, and you had to buy it from your family. So your dad didn't, you had to buy everything. Your dad didn't give you anything other than his love and sort of, some adversity.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, my dad told me a couple of things. He said, one, don't count on the company being there, because all kinds of things could happen and it may not be there. And two, he said, I'm going to spend all my money. So don't think don't plan on getting anything for inheritance, because I'm going to spend it all. And sure enough, in a sense, he didn't leave me anything in inheritance. The fact is, he did. I was able to buy the company at a discount. In fact, when he went, I had 49% of the company. And before he went into surgery, he sold me 2%, right? So he did what he could to get the company discounted at the highest possible level. So really, I bought a $15 million company for $7.5 billion. So, to say he left me nothing would not be the case, right? He gave me a good deal on buying the company.
Yeah.
And I think that
but in today's world, where, it seems like in our society, kids are given everything, and not pushing them out into traffic and letting them get run over, not seriously,
sure,
but get bumped up, etc. That's prevalent today. And, what I think your dad did is very classic and taught you a ton of lessons, how to be your own man, and that you had to go earn it. You wanted it, right? You had that hunger and
Yeah,
you had
and
that fight.
one of the greatest gifts. I think one of the greatest gifts he gave to me was, making me go earn it. Firing me was a gift, and making me go earn it was a gift, right? I get to say to my kids that, hey, I had to buy the company. My dad didn't just give me the company, and that feels really good, personally, but it also is a great, it's a great message to them.
How have you handled that with your own kids, by the way? Are you, do you, knowing what your dad did for you, how are you, what's the conversation you've been having with your kids in the
I
same vein?
pretty damn similar. That we certainly hope the company will be around when you're ready, but there's no guarantee. Um, if somebody came and offered me twice what the company was worth, I'd certainly have to look at selling it. So go be able to create your own path, outside of Hayden Beverage, and go get educated and get smart, and and the same thing, that, we have no intention of, leaving you money, so you better go
Mhm.
figure out what to do. But with them, but I'll probably do something similar to what my dad did with me, right? So where that first 49% of the company, right? He sold me that. He held the note. All my profits went to pay off the note. And so, I get an opportunity. I had to buy it, but I
Right.
had a great opportunity.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so that will, if my boys join the business and buy the business, I'm sure it'll be a similar,
Mhm.
mechanism.
You'll have to go through a firing, of course, too.
Hopefully, hopefully not have to go through the firing.
Well, in today's sort of in today's environment and entertainment being what it is, everybody's watching Landman, right? Taylor Sheridan's story there, and there's a scene in one of the episodes where John Hamm, who plays the owner of the oil company, he's in bed and just had a massive heart attack, needs a heart transplant, and Jerry Jones comes in and sees him, and Jerry goes through sort of why he's been criticized for probably being too hands-on with the Cowboys, etc. But he talked about the family business and what he did and drilled oil wells up in Northern Cal when one of his daughters was at Stanford. He did that so he could be close to her. And he built all of this so he could work with his kids. And he said, not for them, for me. So I got to see them, not just Thanksgiving, Christmas. I got to work with them in the business. And he said, ultimately it kind of went as long as the lines of, hey, I was selfish. I wanted to spend time with my kids. And the way to do that was put them here, which I thought was an interesting take on it versus sort of, hey, I'm bringing the kids in to make it easy on them, et cetera. But it's really for me.
Oh,
And,
for sure. Yeah, I
and I
think,
think, I think that's interesting. And, what's your take on that?
no, I think it was absolutely that way for my dad. Right, literally, we'd be in the office, you know, my desk was here, his desk was right there, and there, several times where he just look up from his desk, look at me, and go, "This is so freaking cool." It really was. It was so, and he loved it, and I loved it, and I learned so much. I could hear his phone conversations. He could hear mine when we had meetings. People come into us. I mean, I think of it as, the guys on, Smokey and the Bandit, right? The guys in the white
Yep.
suit with the big guy, the little guy. So there was some of that, but it was super fun, and
Yeah.
I wish for that for my boys, and I wish that for me. So if no question, I want my boys to come into the business, but at the same time, but I want them to do their own thing, right? So
Yeah.
it'll be a mix. For example, so Carlo, my son, went through Marine Officer Candidate School just like I did, and had a commission in the Marine Corps, offered to him, like I did. My time in the Marine Corps was one of the best, was probably the single, maybe the best decision I ever made, short of marrying my wife, of course. And so I totally wanted him to do that, and he got it. He finished. He had that there to do, and he's choosing not to do it. And part of me is bummed for him because he's not going to get the great experience that I had. But part of me is so proud of him for making his decision
Yeah.
and not doing it, and not doing just what his dad did, or certainly not doing it just to please me. So I'm really, proud of him for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I love that.
I've had the chance to visit with Carlo, and he's a great young man, and he's taken after his dad, and he's paving his own way. He shot me an email here, I think this week, and kind of gave me an update on all his job searching, etc. So he's going to be just fine. I love he's hungry. He's got hustle. He's got, he's well educated, and he's got that drive, which, I think in today you want to see that in these kids, right?
Sure. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I think as my kids have grown up at these different ages, you watch them go through that, and you forget how hard it was to be a teenager, and how hard it was to be a ninth grader, and how hard it was to know, junior year, what am I going to do? And
yeah,
and and obviously we're going to watch them go through the same thing with relationship and kids and jobs, and at the time you just put your head down and slug through it, and then and then years later, you can look and say, "Oh my, no, it wasn't all that easy. It was really hard."
Yeah,
but I think you
forget
repress
about
that.
it. Yeah,
you repress it. Yeah,
yeah.
You just want to, you want to stick to the good story. Yeah.
I think the version now for young kids with social media and all this new stuff too, it just whole nother layer of complications too. That's like, I think it was one of the most common phrases you hear with old folks like us say is, "Oh, could you imagine if social media was around when we were kids?" Like, and that would be horrible, right? So,
it is right. What an amazing new challenge there is. I came up with a new theory a couple weeks ago, and I'll run it to you guys. It's all ego. Everything's ego. Money's ego. Sex is ego. Social media is ego. Everything. It's all ego, and that's not a bad thing, right? A healthy ego is super important, but I have this theory that everything we do is about kind of our self-image, and sometimes it's our self-image to ourselves, sometimes it's projecting that image to others, and how we feel competitively, how we feel, versus our different, foibles and insecurities. But I don't know. I think that there's so much of it is ego, and then you take social media, and holy smokes, is that some kind of accelerator that warps and takes all the the challenging sides of ego and self-image.
Yeah. Well, in social media, it has pluses, right? You get to stay plugged in with people that you normally wouldn't have been able to do without those platforms. But
it also ideas, and
but also it takes a lot of time if people aren't disciplined about how they use it, etc. And you're always on stage, and and I do worry about these, the kids growing up going through that and how much time they spend on it, and you don't want them, to make a mistake that they can't recover from. So you want to kind of, hey, I'm going to let you hit the guardrails, but I'm not going to let you, go over into the ditch. So, you want to make sure that they're being smart about it. But now with the advent of AI and all these new tools that we can use, whether it be Chat GPT, et cetera, these kids are, this younger generation is, you look at the technology that's being adopted and how fast it is changing things. It's only accelerating. So, it's interesting for, as we think about, the way we are training ourselves and continue to learn. I think there's so much to learn today. And, it's a sweet spot for the kids if they're going through this, as long as they use their time right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the access to knowledge now is amazing, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest threat to higher education in a lot of ways, because you can literally become a master and study everything online. You can launch businesses, you can network. Media is completely changed. Like it is democratized so much. And so if they can have the discipline to channel it correctly, but I think it's still
That's
so
the key.
new.
Yeah.
It's still so new. I don't think there's a playbook on it yet. I mean, the people who created these platforms are, they're not letting their kids on it, right? like they're not enough time has passed to be like, this is how you do it. It's just 30
Right.
minutes a day. You check it in. They're like, I don't think anybody's got a defined playbook with enough stats. Like this is how you really leverage it, right? So, but with all things, there's the good and the bad. Some people, you bump against those rails, you'll master it. And,
Yeah. Well, I was at a week-long, executive seminar at Harvard a couple weeks ago, and one of my favorite conversations was with a guy from Hong Kong, and he was probably in his early 40s, maybe late 30s, kind of young guy, and he was talking about, and we were talking about social media and the freedom of social, in China and everything, and which I didn't realize that the Chinese government put a limit on how many hours kids could be on social media per day. Right. So here so which is really interesting, right? So the government recognized that this is a problem and put in this guardrail, which I thought was amazing, right? You would never that would never happen in America, and right, some that obviously there's problems with freedom. That free will thing, will bite you every now and then.
yeah.
No, that's right. Oh,
100%.
fascinating. What else, while we're on that topic, tell us about the additional training, the week you spent at Harvard, and what was that program, and enlighten us. What did you pick up there?
Yeah. So it was, a week of executive education. So really just going back to business school for a week, reading cases. I think we had 15, 17 cases. I got the cases all over a few months before the seminar. So you're read up on the cases. And then, and the great thing is that you get some of the top-notch professors, and, come and work with you. It's great. I think it was like 120 people, 2 sections of 60. You get there, they break into groups of kind of 8 or so, and then you get together, go over the cases. It's very similar to business school. You go over the cases, then you go to class and talk about them. So it's really fun for me, just to be in that learning environment and be, maybe expose some stuff I hadn't been exposed to, be challenged to read things and to be around great professors, right? You forget, just how valuable a really good professional teacher is. And so that was really fun. But some really good courses on Amazon and their culture, courses on Starbucks and their CEO progression and their board. There's a great piece on Microsoft and the CEO transition from Ballmer to the current guy, and just a vast difference in approach and culture. A great course on Best Buy Health, right? If you know Best Buy, so Best Buy got into the health business, and why would Best Buy get in the health business? They got in the home health business because they got their geek squad who had this capability of being good with installing equipment and explaining equipment.
Yeah.
And and then hospitals are trying to push this care to home because they recover faster at home, but you have people who are elderly who are totally uncomfortable with equipment. So Best Buy says, hey, we store and warehouse and sell equipment. We've got people who can install it, and that's what they set up. Just a really cool story about your capabilities and utilizing your capabilities to go into new markets. There was I think just a bunch of really good stuff. They also spent a decent amount of time talking about AI and talking about metaverse. And so I think just giving you reading you into some kind of concepts and what's going on.
Oh, fascinating. Well,
it was really, really good.
Over a better bottle of wine than what you're drinking now. You have to tell me.
It's turning out to be pretty good.
On that note, let me ask the Dodds. Let me start with you on this, and then Justin, I'd love for you to answer this too.
Yeah.
I consider both of you guys black belts in knowledge consumption, and I think we all have a voracious appetite for knowledge. But what I would accredit to both of you guys is, there's a lot of people who have one modality or medium that they consume knowledge in, and they default to that, and they pat themselves on the back and think they do a good job. And I'm talking about myself, let alone I think a lot of other people. And I think when I listen to you guys talk, your involvement in YPO, Dodds, I mean, when you think about knowledge consumption and growing being better, there's reading, there's the podcast, there's the network and the human effect of surrounding yourself with interesting people, putting yourself out there, going to these Harvard events, doing these things. If you had to write a prescription, right, for leaders, and I think for you guys, it's a lot. I'm gonna say this, I may be wrong. Oh, I think you guys innately do this. I don't even know if you guys are consciously disciplined doing this, and so maybe it is. But if you had to write a prescription, what would the prescription be for someone out there who's trying to be better in the importance of the different ways you should do that, and literally a prescription, like over the course of a year, like this is you want to be better. If you're serious about being better and growing, you got to push yourself to do this, right? What would that be for you?
Juice, you go first.
Yeah, I think being intentional about learning is something that's I think it's important. So I think if you're going to be effective at something, you ought to have some system that you're thinking about, whether it's, if you're working on your golf game or you're learning how to play guitar, or you're, interested in developing, your accounting skills or finance skills and want to understand, the three financial statements and in business and how a cash flow ties to earnings and, the balance sheet, et cetera. I think you've got to put things out there every year and say, hey, I want to go learn this. And I think you got to love to learn. I'm happiest when I'm learning. So we travel, but travel is nothing more than learning to me. And so I think you got to travel. I think you need to be around people that are interesting, that have good hearts, that, can teach you things. I mean, we're friends. And I learned, I took a master's class from Dodds on champagne. And, we did that down in St. Bart's. And for over 3 hours, I took notes on my phone. I mean, we were sitting there drinking, and I thought it was just, he has consumed so much information around that and is an expert, and was very bright and well read. So I think being around people that make you grow around things, and being curious, being adaptable, not being, I think that comes from a mindset. But I think programmatically, I try to journal most days. So I get up in the morning and have my cup of coffee and kind of go through my ritual, which is, what am I grateful for? My family, my health, my friends, et cetera. And then I kind of journal around the things that are going on, but I also, hey, what are the things I'm learning, and trying to be really aware of, of the learning process, right? It's one thing to go through class and go to the next quiz and go to the, using a college metaphor, but go and just kind of go through. And there's another thing saying, hey, what am I learning here? Am I learning about Tiananmen Square? But really, what's the point here? The point is, they had a bunch of students who rose up and said, we want to be free. We don't want people telling us what to do. So I think being aware of what you're learning and being around really good people and trying to do that. And I try to read as much as I can. Love reading books. I don't think that ever goes out of style. And I've got a couple of apps on my phone, Blinkist, which is really good. You get a 15-minute sort of executive summary of books, and you can consume. I probably consume 200 of those a year, and then I probably get in 12 to 15 books. I'm reading Henry V right now, the Warrior King, and how he's kind of taken over England and trying to bury the 100-Year War with France. And I just think that's very different than phone calls I had today about AI and other things. So I think being curious and just having a little bit of a process of what you want to try to get done this year and learn.
Yeah, I think so. I have somebody that was asked in a panel for young professionals, what advice would you give to a young professional starting their career? And my advice was drink less and ask more. And the drink less, obviously I love wine and I love beer, but the few times where I've put things at risk, maybe my life or my body, maybe my reputation, or when I had too much to drink. And so, in a world where you may go drink professionally or not professionally, just be careful and be aware, and don't think that you're a superhero and can't get hurt. And then ask more when we're young and we don't know anything. We tend to talk all the time and trying to prove to people, suggest to people that we know what we're talking about when we don't. And then I find that when the older we get, the more I ask questions, the more I listen to other people.
Yeah.
So the more I know, it is just counterintuitive, but that's the thing. I get I think my favorite leadership technique or management technique is the interview, and just going and asking questions of my customers, of my employees, of my suppliers. We have a theme this year: make it easy. Trying to be easier. How to be easier to do business with. And so I've just been going and asking everyone, what are the pain points of the vendors you work with? What drives you? What makes them hard? What makes companies easy to do business with? And just answer. Just asking those questions all the time, and people so appreciate it when you ask them, because you're making a statement that they have value to give. So it makes them feel good, and you'll learn stuff, right, that you didn't know. And the other, so I think that similar to that, right, the idea of humility, right? So humility to me is seeking knowledge, is the understanding you have so much to learn. The opposite of arrogance, which is thinking that people don't have something to teach you. And so I think the big part, or if I'd look at that, the prescription, one would be, consume things, right? So consume books, consume articles, so I set a goal to read 24 books a year. I've got a buddy, John Hale, who, he will, spend 2 hours in the morning consuming magazine, or either magazine or news articles. And so I guess that depends on what you like. And I think, set some goals so you consume stuff. And then I think a big part is surround yourself with the people. So I put together, Juice is part of it. I put together a group, of just guys to get together and talk about topics.
Yep.
I hired an advisory board. I don't need a board, but I hired an advisory board because there's guys who are a lot smarter than I am about stuff.
Yeah.
And just like, I was able to teach, Justin about champagne. I'm over at Justin's house, and he totally helped me walk through a contract negotiation that I'm working on, right, with his understanding of deals and earnouts and lots of stuff. So I think that always asking questions and being open is a huge part of it. But yeah, I think it's two things, right? It's surrounding yourself with people who are, and somebody, Hal Eastman, there's an old Boise Cascade guy, a Boise guy. And, when I asked him the secret to business, he said, surround yourself by people who are smarter than you. Right? If you always try to do that, in your friend group, at work, all that stuff, I mean, how much better are you going to be?
Yeah.
So I think that, but I think but so many people are insecure and they don't want to do it. They want to be around people who are lesser than them. And
oh yeah.
And so I think that part of that humility is, takes confidence. So,
Dodds, what was
I mean, it's a little bit of the stoic mindset of, hey, I'm going to get better. And, I look in the mirror, I like who I am, and I got a lot to learn, a lot to get better at, but having enough desire and enough self-awareness and being comfortable in your own skin, I think for young people, the Socratic method works. I mean, the Socratic method of inquiry, of asking questions, and tell me more about that, and tell me how you're thinking about this. Even with your, the people that work with you at work, and tell them, hey, how are you thinking about this? And, that's a beautiful way of learning, but it's also a beautiful way of leading as well.
Yeah. The one other thing I'd say is, and I saw it in the Marine Corps, and I saw it again in the prison, and I tried to adopt it at Hayden, is the idea of an after action. We call it at Hayden, we do humility seminars. And in the military, it's called a hot wash, where after a mission, you come back and you talk through what happened and what lessons you learned. And you do that as a group, and, you call people out, who screwed up and why did you screw up and what happened and how do we make sure it doesn't happen again. But what a great way to learn. And for me, I really try to do it when we have a screw up. We had a tractor trailer that went off the road a couple of years ago, and so we got a group together and we had how did this happen? And the more we investigated, we found out, well, this guy, let a driver who, had COVID. He was going to go to the hospital. He had COVID, but wait, we needed a driver. We didn't have it. His supervisor was on vacation. So, God, we need you. Hey, sorry, you can't go to the hospital. So they put him on the road and sent him up to Sun Valley to 3 hours away. And the guy ends up in a ditch and he was weaving all over the road. He should have killed people. He ends up in a ditch. Right. And then, then as we do that and we keep asking the questions, right? Whose fault is that? Whose fault is that? Well, of course, it's the supervisor who's told him he had to go. No, it was, and that realized me. It was my fault. I built a culture of we get it done. We get the job done. We deliver the product. And it was like, oh my God, they had to totally change. Guys, there is no delivery that's worth somebody's life.
Yeah.
And so so doing that exploration, right, of what happened, how did we get here to have this mistake, allows that kind of learning that, can then change an organization or change you personally.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, that gets into straight objectives and decision rights within a company and how you run the company, right? So, that's a great best practice. I took some notes on that.
Tell us. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you. So tell us about the Marine Corps and your journey there, and being in the Special Forces, which I think is really, really challenging, difficult. You get the best of the best, and it's to me, it's more will and mental toughness than anything else to get through the rigor of that based on our conversation. So I think it's really fascinating. I'd love to hear it.
I think
sort of all about it.
Yeah. So I think I think the reason, the way I ended up getting the Marine Corps was, my dad had such a good experience at boot camp and had been honor man in his platoon. And I, as you may have seen already, I, totally modeled myself after my dad and competed with my dad and stuff. And so I was in college junior year, and I was a big journaler in college. I had journaled out what my life looked like over the next 20 years. And after I got it done, I was like, oh my God, that looks so boring. So I broke the mold. And one of the things I did was I signed up for officer candidate school, 10 weeks, Quantico, Virginia, of Marine Corps boot camp. And so I went down there and it was tough. It was 100 degrees, 100% humidity in Virginia, every morning at 4 a.m. They just work the crap out of you. Guys falling over, thermometers up their butts. It was, and we started, I think we had 33% attrition. We started with 60 in my platoon, ended up with 40 graduated. It was tough. Yeah. And then, so get through that, went back to college, decided to accept my commission, and then, then did 5 years in the Marine Corps. And it was best decision I ever made incredible friendships, had incredible experiences. I got to go overseas twice, 2 6-month pumps on a ship, and got to, go see Asia and Southwest Asia and Australia. And it was an incredible experience. But to me, what was so great about it was the leadership. So one, you study leadership, and you don't study it for a little bit and then stop. You study it in school for the first 6-month school, and then for your next 3-month specialty school, and you are expected. I remember a colonel telling us that it is as appropriate for you to be sitting at your desk at lunch reading, professional military education as it is for you to go out and PT, physical train and work out. And it was just a great lesson about constantly studying leadership. And the thing is about the Marine Corps, Marine Corps officer, here I am, 22 years old, and I'm in command of 42 guys that I have to get ready for combat. I showed up, and within 2 or 3 weeks, I had to fire my platoon sergeant. And that's stuff that is just so valuable. It's stuff that usually you get where we're 25, 28, 29, 30. And so it really, it force feeds that leadership education, which I think was the most valuable. But I think part of the whole Marine Corps process, boot camp and other parts were, they just put you through the ringer to the point that when you're in a really tough spot, I've been here before. I know I can handle this. And I think that's probably something that, I hate to sound like the old guy again, but, how much of that do our kids, get of, getting really pushed to the edge. So, it's like, when you swim and train and train and train to swim, you end up in the ocean in a tough spot. You have the confidence to know you're okay. You can get there. Right?
Yep.
But that comes through being pushed and pushed and pushed to kind of set a different standard or understanding for yourself, a comfort level.
Right.
What was like the biggest?
The Marine Corps, it was just awesome. Go ahead.
I would say, what was there one key thing you learned about leadership that might not be one of the obvious things? I mean, there's so many great things about the military and special forces I can imagine. Was something sort of unexpected that a lot of people might not really think of that you learned it there?
I think that I learned lots of stuff, right? I mean, I think first and foremost, setting high standards. That was the biggest piece, and I think that's the Marine Corps just generally does that really well. But one of the things that I take, one of my favorite leadership lessons from the Marine Corps, in Force Recon, which again, the Marine Corps doesn't have special forces, and the Force Recon is the special forces. They parachute and scuba dive and do all this stuff and did hostage rescue and so it's kind of the elite group, and with the elite group comes hazing, right? And so one of the hazings is a gold wing ceremony. So after you go to Fort Benning, Georgia, you go to jump school and you get the silver wings upon your chest, right? Like from the John Wayne movie. But then you go back to your unit. And once you jump with your unit 5 times, then you get what's called the Navy Marine Corps wings. And they're gold wings of a different shape. And that signifies that you are in a unit that jumps for a living. And the gold wing ceremony has been around forever. And certainly illegal. Certainly in 1995 it was illegal. And so it's against the rules, but we all did it. And there were horror stories about, so what would happen was you finish your 5th jump, and then the platoon sergeant says, all right, you need to be at the scuba locker at a certain time. You need to bring a keg of beer, a helmet, a white t-shirt, a Sharpie marker, 4 sets of gold wings. And anything else, Gunny? No, that's it. All right. That's right, sir. We'll see you there. So you show up and you're in your white t-shirt, and you take a set of gold wings and you hand it to one of the gold wingers, and he takes those gold wings and he puts it in your chest, and he stands back and he whacks your chest, and then you shake his hand and you say, thank you, gold winger. And then you pull the wings out of your chest and you hand them and you say, next gold winger, and you hand them to the next gold winger, and he does the same thing. And that happens over and over and over again. And in between, the Marines, who, not all of them are that highly elevated or evolved, they'll come in and start pushing your chest and, prepping the zone, and trying to squeeze the blood. And of course, there's just blood everywhere, right? And it's this horrible ceremony, right?
They're basically punching a nail into your chest.
2 nails, right? 2 nails over and over and over in the same place, right? And I did it. So I got woozy. I think I passed out at one point. It was incredibly painful and barbaric and horrible and awful. But that was on a Friday. When I showed up on Monday and I saw a little Lance Corporal walking down the hallway with his gold wings, it was like, holy shit. I had so much respect for him because he had gone through what I had gone through. It was really cool, right? Those ceremonies can be when they don't get out of control.
Yep.
So we have a new commanding officer come into Force Recon, and we're meeting for the first time, and I was a platoon commander, and I said, "Sir, what's your policy on gold wing ceremonies?" And he had his gold wings, and he said, "Lieutenant, I make it a policy not to make policy." Now, I would hope that if a gold wing ceremony happened, that I would have that an officer or a senior staff NCO would be there to make sure that nothing got out of hand. But my policy is to have good leaders who make good decisions. And I have carried that with me throughout my career, right? In the bigger companies get, the more they want to have policy, right? And we look at what's happening right now, with the Doge, right? We're this taking, trying to take this giant bureaucracy with all these layers and to simplify it, right? How do you be a company that moves fast? You decentralized authority, right? And how do you, and part of that is remove these asphyxiating policies that you can't even remember why they were there sometimes. So I just love that. I love that, just having a policy of good judgment, and leaving it at that. So that was probably my favorite leadership lesson from the Marine Corps.
First one, Dodds. What's a wine that you recommend this year for all of us to go to a restaurant to go try or order?
I want you to try a Ribera del Duero. That is a region in Rioja in Spain, making Tempranillo grapes, is what the wine's made from. And I don't think I've had a bad one. Every that's medium bodied, it's just got a great character. It's not overly ripe. So it's good with lots of food. So I would try that if you want to try something new.
Love that. All right, next one. If you go to the Hayden Beverage website on Dodds' profile, it's got his book list. You can see all the books that he's reading and is read. But Dodds, 3 books this year to recommend, to really power books for people who want to learn and grow and push ourselves.
Power books. I'm going to say one of the. If I were recommend 3, I'll give you one history, and that is Napoleon: A Life. That I read last year that was just incredible. It's just incredible what a single human being can do in a relatively short period of time. Like Napoleon and Alexander are great. What they did by the time they were 30 is inconceivable. So a lot of stuff in there about Napoleon. Another power book, if I'm going to go fiction, I say All the Light We Cannot See by Tony Doerr, who's a friend of mine, and won the Pulitzer Prize for that. And it's just an amazing novel set in World War II. The writing is incredible. The history is incredible. The amount of research that he did and the detail of the things of the way he writes that book is just utterly amazing. And what would be a third? A third would be good if there was some kind of business or leadership to it. I think a really good one is On Character, it's called, and it's David Brooks wrote it, and it's profiles of several figures in, I think they're mostly American history, but a great discussion of character and what it means to have character.
Love that. One more, a piece of content, like what is Dodds following, listening to on a daily or weekly basis that's feeding your soul, right? Is there somebody you're listening to, following, that we can check out?
I don't think I have a soul feeder right now.
What about music? What are you listening to?
I am listening to a lot of jazz now. Stan Getz, Miles Davis, Dave Brubeck. I'm really enjoying that right now.
Love that.
Love it. One last one for me. Culture, Dodds. I love culture, and especially in companies of your size, because it gets more and more difficult to have culture as you scale. Top 2-3 things that you could pass along. Assume everybody knows the obvious, right? Those nitty gritty, the tactical things. Like give us a few of those things that you would recommend for people who are really trying to scale culture.
So one quick one is when you walk through the office or you walk through a warehouse or you walk through a parking lot and there's a piece of trash there, you pick it up. It sounds incredibly simple, but it's amazing how many executives or mid-level leaders won't pick it up because they think somebody else will pick it up. It sets the example of that no leader is above doing work. It sets the example that we want to have high standards and it's up to us to maintain them. And it drives home the broken window theory that if you let that trash stand, guess what? There's going to be a lot more trash soon. And it goes to what Gary Michaels, the old former CEO of Albertsons, used to love to say, which is never walk by something wrong. And if you play that out, think about that. Never walk by something wrong. And that could be a piece of trash on the ground. It could be a unsafe situation. It could be somebody taking a shortcut. It could be somebody treating someone else inappropriately. And imagine what happens if you have an organization of 10 or 15 or 20 or 500 or 1,000, and they have that mindset. Incredible, the power. So that is, pick up a piece of trash when you're walking through the warehouse or the parking lot of the office.
Yeah.
It was powerful. And then the one thing I would say that the one thing I do that has really been effective for me was I do a monthly newsletter. And I am very transparent about our performance, sales, profit, execution, safety. I talk about themes that initiatives we're trying to drive. I celebrate people and their aspirational activities and accomplishments. And I write it, and I write it every month personally, and it has a huge impact on the company.
Yeah.
And I think communication, we all know in every company, what needs improvement? It's always communication. So we can never do enough of it. We can over email, but I think that good communication, we rarely do too much of that.
Love that.
Well said. I think probably the last thing. So as we kind of are double clicking and really exploring, leadership and life, and how do you think about what's your advice to younger professionals or students about adversity? And certainly you're going through that, and I've never seen you had a bad day. You were diagnosed with MS not too long ago, and you've been fighting it, and your outlook on life and the way you approach that so stoically is incredible, really incredible. So what would your advice be?
Well, I think the first one is never ever quit. Period. Right? Never quit when it gets hard. You don't quit a marriage. You don't quit a company. You don't quit. You just don't. You just don't quit just because it's hard. I think that's super important. And then on the other side, with the MS, it would be easy to let MS define me. I'm Dodds Hayden. I have MS. You think about all the things that could happen to you physically, or even in your career or in your family, right? I'm so and so. I'm a widower, or I lost a child, or I'm a divorcee. I mean, you can define yourself with all these things, but it's totally up to you with how you define yourself and how you let yourself be defined. And I've just chosen. I'm just not going to define myself. I'm not going to let that be, a part of my life or who I am. Right? I still, I walk with a limp, and I have to do all those things, but I just make it such a small part of me that it doesn't get more strength than it has, if that makes sense.
Well, I'm lucky and grateful to have the opportunity to call you a friend, and
absolutely,
you always inspire me, and I'm a little choked up. I think you're incredible, and I hope people that are interested, and the reason we're doing this is to learn and build good relationships. There's not a monetary value to doing any of this. This is really us giving what I think is gifts of experience and conversation with a lot of people that we don't have a chance to have in our breakfast or at breakfast or sitting here having lunch. So I think I'm grateful for that. Lastly, what's the most interesting place you traveled to this last year?
In the last year, I have to think about where I traveled this year.
Well, there's a pretty cool castle you went and visited.
Yeah, it would have to be, of the places I traveled this year, it would have to be Scotland. Paris was cool, and there was cool stuff, but Scotland, yeah, I think the base of the Highlands of Scotland, where I went on invitation by Juice. I'd been to Scotland, but I haven't been to that part of Scotland, and it was awesome and so cool that I went back 3 months later. Yeah, that was really neat. So thank you, Juice, for that. Thank you for putting this together. And I am honored to be on the phone with you two, who I consider to be extraordinary.
Well, Dodds, was great
John,
having you,
great. We appreciate your time. I know you got a business to go run. You got a meeting, so thank you.
That's right, man.
All right, see you guys.
Thanks, Dodds.
Thanks.
See you, buddy.